This is from Mondowise. The United States and Israel set out to remake the Middle East again. The mood in Washington today is similar to 2003, when the neocons of the Bush administration sought to remake the Middle East. This time, a joint vision shared by Israel and the Biden-Harris administration seeks to remake the region in the West's vision. I have to throw Harris in there because people forget. People try to separate the two. Like, oh, no, when she's in office, she's going to magically do all these things she hasn't had any power to do or any say to do. She's not. It's Biden-Harris. It is the Biden-Harris administration. If she was going to do a fucking thing, if she was going to protect your reproductive rights, if she was going to protect children's rights, your right to work, your right to education, she would have done it by now. She's not going to do shit but give Israel more fucking money, more fucking weapons, so they can continue this stupid shit.
22 years ago, as the winds of war were gathering in Washington, there was a strong sense of not just rage, but overconfidence in the United States. The neoconservative movement was at the height of its influence both in and outside of government. The world had rallied around the United States and its invasion of Afghanistan in the wake of September 11th attacks, and they had not yet realized that the invasion force was already sinking into what would become a 22-year quagmire.
Quagmire? That's a very...
a catastrophe.
I'm sorry, but I quite giggity. Sorry.
The neocons argued that it was time to remake the Middle East according to the West's vision, ignoring the fact that the region's problems stemmed in large measure from post-colonial conditions that traced the roots back to the Allied powers' decision to draw the region's borders according to their colonial ambitions in the aftermath of World War I. They seized the opportunity to put their theories to the test.
Yeah, let's play with people's fucking lives, because why not? Sorry. Let's just play with people's lives. Let's just decide that, you know what? Canada doesn't need to be there anymore. Let's rename it something else.
No, it's more like, let's just impose all this stuff because we're white. And they're not.
Pretty much.
We're Christians and they're not.
Most religions have committed genocide, and look what's happening now. They're committing a genocide, and they're using the excuse of religion when it doesn't have anything to do with religion.
I mean, there's genocide in the Bible. So.
But this gets you put in jail. This kind of violence gets you assassinated by the CIA and replaced with somebody else that they like better.
This gets you put in the Hague.
Like, what do you call that when they dispose the leader? Switch it to somebody else.
Regime change.
Yes, regime change. This kind of action deserves a regime change. Like, this is the one time the CIA should actually do it for the good.
They would never do. Iraq was the focal point of that test, but it was the entire region that was the laboratory for these mad scientist experiments. The repercussions of the disaster they brought to the region are felt to this day. The mood today in Washington is similar. This time, an attack on Israel is the excuse for the catalyst that has sparked a renewed ambition to reshape the Middle East. This time, according to a joint vision shared by the Israeli government of Benjamin Netanyahu and the administration of Joe Biden in the United States. Whether it's State Department mouthpiece Matthew Miller bragging that the United States was never interested in a diplomatic resolution of the assault on the Gaza Strip, or both Joe Biden and Kamala Harris calling the assassination of Hassan Nasrallah a measure of justice, while ignoring the hundreds of civilians Israel had killed in Beirut in the attack, triumphalism and hubris are the order of the day in Washington. That triumphalism is matched and surpassed in Israel. Netanyahu's assassination of much of Hezbollah's top leadership, including Nasrallah, has helped to shift attention away from Gaza, where Israel had destroyed much of the Strip, killed tens of thousands of innocents, but for all that blood has yet to defeat Hamas.
Because you can't defeat an idea.
Radical settler and former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett called on Israel to destroy Iran's nuclear reactors. Another former PM, the supposedly more rational Ehud Barak, cautioned Israel not to try to go to war with Iran until it secured the help it needs from the United States. The idea of de-escalation is invisible in this discourse. The mood in Israel and Washington betrays the reality behind Israel's genocidal program in Gaza. From October 7th to this moment, the Netanyahu government's sights were not set on Gaza or even the West Bank, but on Iran. The utter lack of value that Israel, the United States, and their European allies placed on Palestinian lives meant that these innumerable people in Gaza who have died directly from Israeli attacks and indirectly from disease, exposure, lack of clean water, malnutrition, starvation, and all the other effects of war have been sacrificed as an opening salvo in the latest attempt to remake the Middle East. Unfortunately, first Hezbollah and then Iran could only avoid the confrontation for so long. Hezbollah could not turn their backs on Hamas, although both they and Iran were apparently caught unaware when Hamas launched its attack on October 7. Iran's strategy of patience and playing the long game may be the wiser course, but neither they nor Hezbollah could afford to be perceived as inactive in the face of the wholesale slaughter Israel was unleashing on Gaza. The real shift that Iran might have underestimated in its calculations a year ago is the one in Washington. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris went further than any of their predecessors in refusing to restrain Israel to even the slightest degree. In the past, American presidents had always worked to keep Israel from embroiling the Middle East in a regional war that could drag the U.S. and other countries in. Donald Trump was something of an exception in his indulgence of Israel and recklessness in dealing with Iran, the assassination of Qasem Soleimani and the abrogation of the JCPOA being the most obvious examples, but he was too mercurial. But he was too unpredictable for Israel to be sure he would act as they wanted him to if provoked with a war with Iran. Biden and Harris moved the needle. He made it absolutely clear from the onset that he was backing Israel to the hilt. Every time Netanyahu tested the limits of Biden and Harris's tolerance, he found it limitless. Every time Netanyahu crossed the so-called red line of the Biden-Harris administration, he not only faced no consequences, he was rewarded with more money and weapons. Even while Netanyahu had worked to support Donald Trump in this election, Biden-Harris has remained steadfast in their complete devotion to Israel's program. The danger of combining that kind of deference to Israel with the Israeli far right's determination to wage a wide-scale war with no concern about the regional consequences cannot be overstated. This is a moment that dwarfs the American invasion of Iraq in 2003 for the potential upheaval it can cause in the region. While there have been regular reports of dissension throughout the executive branch, many of Biden and Harris's key advisors are fully on board with raising the stakes against Iran. The reactions we are seeing right now to the latest escalation demonstrate this. After Israel assassinated Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran, Iran promised retaliation that never came. The most likely explanation is that Iran was biding its time, knowing it was not in a position of military strength and hoping that domestic American pressures might be heightened by the new Iranian president. Masoud demonstrated openness to reestablishing with the West. Unfortunately, Masoud's pragmatism, which given anti-Iranian hostility in the United States, was always going to be greeted with skepticism. It is largely unknown to Americans, as it has been ignored by most of our media. Instead, we get spectacles like the one we had during the vice presidential debate on Tuesday, where the very first question posed to the candidates was not how to diffuse regional tensions, but whether they would back an Israeli strike on Iranian nuclear facilities.
Are you guys just trying to end the entire world? Like, are we just trying to just go all out in a big fucking bang?
You guys just bored? World War III? Yeah.
If you're bored, play a mobile game. Kill fake troops.
Yeah.
Stop killing actual people. People, they're not animals, they're people.
The salviating over the prospect of war is not at all confined to the media. A report in Politico stated that Biden top advisor Brett McGurk and Amos Hochstein were pushing hard for a major attack on Lebanon and, by extension, Iran. According to Politico, behind the scenes, Hochstein and McGurk and other top U.S. national security officials are describing Israel's Lebanon operations as a history-defining moment, one that will reshape the Middle East for the better for years to come. The thinking goes, Israel has obliterated Hezbollah's top command structure in Lebanon, severely undercutting the group's capabilities and weakening Iran, which used Hezbollah as a proxy and power projector. The report suggests that this view has triumphed in the White House, and that expanding an operation against Hezbollah could offer an opportunity to reduce Iran's influence in Lebanon and the region. We need to be clear about where each side stands on this. While the Biden-Harris administration has insisted for the past year that they want to avoid a regional war, their actions have pushed the region toward one.
Reagan sent a letter to Israel and told them to knock it the fuck off, and you know what they did?
It was a phone call. He was like, what you're doing is a Holocaust in Lebanon, you better fucking stop. And he fucking stopped.
Ooh.
But it wasn't Netanyahu. It was someone else.
Nonetheless, you can tell that Iran, I don't want to say was making empty threats, but was more or less making it clear that, like, you're pushing for us to respond. You're getting closer to us. You're making it clear your intentions are to come to us. We just can't keep ignoring that.
To be sure, this was a risk Hezbollah took as well when they opened the northern front with Israel to help Hamas withstand the Israeli onslaught by trying to divide Israel's forces. Yet when push came to shove, Hezbollah recognized the threat Israel posed and was willing to compromise. Lebanon acting foreign minister Abdallah Abu Habib told CNN's Christine Amanpour that Hezbollah had agreed to the U.S.-France's proposal for a 21-day ceasefire shortly before Israel killed him. Habib is no Hezbollah mouthpiece. He is a longtime World Bank economist and former Lebanese ambassador to the United States. He made it clear to the Americans and Israelis knew that Hezbollah had agreed to the ceasefire. Iran, as well, has been trying to avoid escalation, but the Islamic Republic was facing criticism over its strategic patience and was in danger of seeming impotent in the face of Israeli aggression, while Hezbollah, Ansarullah, Hamas, and other smaller groups were taking action. After Nasrallah's assassination, Iran had to respond. Yet, even when it did, it targeted Israeli military sites, and as it did in April, it warned the United States beforehand. This time around, Iran used high-quality missiles and gave the U.S. much less lead time to prepare themselves and the Israelis to defend against the missiles. There had been considerable secrecy under Israel's system of military censorship about the extent of the damage Iran might have done with the latest barrage. Iran had clearly stepped up its response, recognizing that both its inaction after Haniyeh's killing and its very restrained missile attack back in April had encouraged rather than deterred Israeli and American adventurism. Yet, they still made sure to minimize the response, hoping to avoid further escalation by the U.S. and Israel. Biden said on Wednesday that the United States did not support a strike on Iran's nuclear facilities. This isn't as much of a concession as it might sound.
We don't support it, but here's some weapons and money.
Iran's nuclear program is not concentrated in a single site, as Syria's was in 2007 or Iraq's in 1981. When Israel bombed those sites, Iran facilities are scattered throughout the country, some of them deep underground.
Oh, God. Of course they're deep underground. No offense about hiding things deep underground, but that's their whole excuse for blowing up neighborhoods. Even though, they can clearly do a precision strike. Look up where they killed the twin babies.
Yeah, Israel can conduct precision strikes, and they've shown us they could when they assassinated 2 twin-day-old babies.
4 day old? I think they were 4 days old?
Yep.
4 days old. 4 days. But they were Hezbollah or Hamas. They had
Hamas
guns.
Babies.
I think one of them had a grenade in their diaper. If Iran was doing this, where would the U.S. be at this point?
Probably striking Iran.
All up in arms, throwing a fit.
Yeah, we're a bunch of hypocrites. A strike at any of them is not going to cripple the program as a whole, but it certainly could entice Iran to speed up their nuclear development as much as they can. The more pertinent question is whether Israel will refrain from targeting the kind of civilian areas as they have in Gaza, the West Bank, Lebanon, Syria, and Yemen. Extensive civilian harm would force a much stronger Iranian response. Or Israel might strike Iranian oil fields in hope of inflicting major damage to an Iranian economy that is already weak. If Israel does pursue that course, it raises the distinct possibility that Iran might strike at oil fields in Arab countries that are key to the American, Israeli, and European energy supply. Either of these scenarios significantly raises the likelihood of a major regional war. The other possibility is that Israel would settle for a token response, one that, like Iran's this week, demonstrates its capabilities, but does relatively little damage. This would be the most rational course. But the question is, with a license to shoot given to it by the Biden-Harris administration again, would Israel pursue a rational course?
Israel, there's nothing rational about Israel. Not even its existence is rational.
The people aren't rational.
The book told me it needs to be here. There's a book. It told me. I'm going to write a book that says you're not real.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Given the eagerness in which the Biden-Harris administration seems to be pressing forward with another doomed attempt to remake the Middle East, rationality seems like a pipe dream. Every time this has been tried, whether with the Sykes-Picot Agreement after World War I, the invasion of Iraq, or Israelis' attacks on Lebanon in the 70s and 80s, it had always ended in disaster and in planting the seeds of yet more conflict and bloodshed. There is no reason to believe this time would be any different.
It won't. Israel's not going to stop until Israel is stopped, and we need to stop.
We are the only ones that can stop Israel, I think. The U.S. is the only person that can stop Israel. And I'm not even sure if that's true anymore. It's like the United States of Israel, so it's like...
Well, Netanyahu said that with or without our help, he could do this whole thing on his own. So why don't we just let him show us that he can do it without our help? Let's stop giving him money and weapons, and let's see just how far he can get on his own. Iran is literally like, hey, I'm going to attack you, because I need to show you that you've got to stop, but I'm giving you a heads up so you can prepare, you can move people, you can get ready, you can get your Iron Dome up. I just want to let you know, we have to show you our strength. We have to do an attack. You're killing hundreds of thousands of people. You're displacing millions of people. You're destroying areas that won't even be cleared out in our lifetime.
It's like a parent trying to deal with a angsty teenager or something. It's like, you should really think about de-escalating and not doing the shit and stop doing genocides maybe. And Israel's like, no, I want a genocide now.
I'm from the South, which means it's okay to spank your kids when necessary. Israel needs a hard ass spanking.
It needs knocked into next week.
Netanyahu, knocked into Netanyahu.
As Mama Maz used to say.
I just don't think, at this point in time, I don't think that Israel will stop unless they are stopped. I don't see them stopping on their own. Even if they were told that they get to keep all the territory that they've claimed so far, I just don't see them stopping. They had an agreement to stop for 21 days and then killed the literal person who they got the agreement with. They're not going, you can't trust them.
Yeah, they've never been a partner for peace.
You can't trust them.
This is the evidence. It's been the...
And anyone who is there in the Middle East, who is hoping that there will be this kind of peace, understand that Israel lies. Don't believe them.
Oh, they know.
Don't get comfortable.
I'm sure. It's all about perspective.
You cannot oppress people and expect them not to fight back. It doesn't matter who you are, what group you are. It doesn't matter if this is also a working class type situation. If you're in the higher up, if you are the oppressor, you deserve to be knocked down by the oppressed.